Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_dada. Well, I wanted to poke around on a spreadsheet a little bit today. I just felt like something fun to do. It's exceedingly early in the season, probably, to be doing this, but things are going well enough that without saying definitively this is just what reality is, I just want some context. You guys know I love some context. The two things I primarily wanted to look at are what I think are the two most important things. I've been saying for a very long time, you know, we argue about this, that, or the other, the receivers, and it doesn't matter. Jordan Love is what matters. Truly. And so there's a little bit of this and that being bantered around, and so I wanted to just kind of poke around a couple things with Jordan Love, just for the sake of context. How is he doing comparatively so? Well, sometimes people get mad at comparisons. I think that's silly, because everybody's so focused on team sports. How dare you compare to this or that person? It's not about that, dude, at least not from what I'm trying to do. I just need some context to say, okay, so he's roughly in and around, you know, this snapshot of a human being that I'm aware of. You know, 2013 Rodgers or something. You know, I don't know. Be honest, I haven't started that yet. What I have finished and what I want to start with now is the other thing that I find incredibly important, which is the defense. Obviously a billion different ways to do these things. I don't want to get too much into the weeds about the perfect way to do it. There isn't a ton of great information, especially when you start going all the way back. I'm actually upset with myself that I didn't go further back when I saw how I actually ended up doing this. But whatever. I went from 1990, because I wanted to encapsulate sort of when the era of, you know, passing explosion happened, which, by the way, one of the things I did do was add in a little chart that does go back. Oh, you know what? This only goes back to 92. Well, whatever. But you can actually see in 1995 when really the passing, or the points, I guess you could say, exploded. It's been a pretty steady upward trend up to and including continuing now. I don't know about, well, what are we at right now? It doesn't matter. It's been a slow climb in points, but the biggest explosion was from 93 to 95. I mean, it kind of went down to 93, but still, that was a huge jump in points from 93 to 95. But anywho, I captured from 1990 on and got the league average points scored, looked at the Green Bay Packers or average points allowed. I guess it's the same thing, points scored, points allowed. It's going to end up the same. But the Packers' points allowed. And then I wanted to look at it in terms of total differential. You know, they're 2 points worse, 3 points better, but then as a percentage, because again, it's not static. It's not the same amount of points scored today as there was in 1996, for example. And so the first thing I wanted to do was just kind of highlight the change in point and how it's been a very steady climb. So, for example, in the early 90s, like I said, there was a dip from 91, 92, and 93. The points really dropped off. You were at 18-ish, 18 to 19 points per game, 18.7, 18.7, and 18.9. After that, as well as 1990, you had games that were kind of closer to around 20 points per game. 95 was 21 points per game. 98 was 21 points per game. But otherwise, from 94 to 2001, it was in and around 20 points per game, 20.5, 20.4, whatever. And that was pretty much the standard. Then it started to tick a little bit more. It was 21, 20, 21, 20, 20, 21. You know, it's kind of like that light switch is slowly starting to tick over to 21. That was the early 2000s. So 2002 to 2007. Then you had kind of another big explosion because it was going back and forth between 20 and 21 with a little bit heavier toward 20. In 2008, it shot straight to 22. And aside from 2 years, 3 years, a couple very recently, it hasn't sunk below 22. In 2013 was the first time it cracked 23 points. It went back to 22 and kind of hovered there until 2018 when we saw 23 again. 2020 was when there was a massive points explosion. That was the year of COVID when we said kind of inexplicably defense was the one that was hit the most. Not only did it cross beyond 23 into 24, it almost hit 25. It was 24.8 points per game. Immediately after COVID, it started coming back down to around 23. Then it sunk down to 21 and 21, which again, real low. 2024, it shot back up to about 23. Right now, we're at about 22.8. So we're kind of like, COVID was kind of weird, but we're kind of in a 22 ticking over to 23 points per game phase, if I had to guess. Maybe there's a leveling off and we're not going to see much beyond that, but that would be my guess, is we're going to slowly tip over into 23 points per game. In terms of the Green Bay Packers and when they've been better or worse, what's kind of interesting is they've had more seasons, significantly more, where their defense was better than average than worse than average. Now remember, it goes back to 1990, so we have to broaden our remembrance of things, I guess. But I think a lot of times when we think about the Packers having a bad defense, a lot of times our defense was kind of hovering in like 13th, 14th place. It was frustrating, but it wasn't like 32nd. Sometimes it was really, really bad, but a lot of times it was just not one of the top defenses, not good enough to kind of carry you or whatever. But the worst defenses, we'll go from best to worst that were worse than average. There were only 13 of them, or actually 12 of them. 2011 was just barely worse than average. They allowed 22.4 points per game. 22.2 was the average. So they were 1.16% worse than average. The 1999 team, surprisingly, was 2.4% worse. 1991, 3%. 2005 was 4% worse. 2016, 6.5%. 2018, 7%. That borderline surprises me because I thought 2018 was better than that. But the league average was giving up 23 points. We were giving up 25 points per game. 1990, 7.8. 2008, 7.81. 2017, 10.5% worse than average. The league average was 21.7. We were at 24. In 2004, 10.55. 2006, 10.73. And the worst, by a super wide margin, was the 2013 Green Bay Packers. The league, and that was a year of points explosions. 23.4 points per game. The Packers gave up 26.75 points per game in 2013. But again, that isn't to say, again, the characterization is that Rodgers suffered through terrible defenses every year of his career, which obviously that's not true. I mean, 2009, 2010, he had amazing defenses and went on to win the Super Bowl. There was also 2014, 3.7% better than average. 2022 was actually the one that was the closest to being dead average, but was still technically better. 0.27% better. 2021 was 5% better than average. 2020 was 7% better than average. 2012 was 7.7% better than average. 2015 was 11.5% better than average. 2009, like I said, 13.5% better than average. 2019, 14.25% better than average. And of course, 2010, freaking crazy, 31.93% better than average. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but you might remember I've said in the past that when the Packers' defenses are at their best, they tend to win Super Bowls, with 2009 as kind of being the outlier. if you look at the data this way, and again, I'm not saying this is the perfect way to determine how good a defense is, but I think points are kind of important in not allowing teams to score points and all that. The gap between the 2010 Super Bowl champion Packers defense and the next best defense, which was 2001, is staggering. So in 2001, the average points per game was 20. The Packers only allowed 16.6 points per game, which is remarkable, right? It's 3.6 points less than average, which is 17.74%. The 2010 Packers allowed 15 points per game in a league that was allowing 22, which is 7 points less than average, 32%. That's almost double. 17.7 compared to 32. Let's call it twice as good of a defense. Unbelievable. Do you know the only other defense to be in and around that? It was the 1996 Packers, who allowed 13 points per game in a league giving up 20.4, which is 7.3 points better than the league, which was 35.75%. So the number one Packers defense in that span was 1996 at 35.75%, call it 36%. Number two, the 2010 Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers at 32%, 32.93%. Do you know where the Packers are right now in 2025? The league is averaging 22.78 points. The Packers have allowed 15.5 points, which is 7.28 points less than the league average. It is 31.96%. It is almost exactly where the 2010 Packers were. Not quite to the 35.75% of 1996. But on either side of the 2025 Green Bay Packers, when you look at the defenses, you have the 2010 Packers on one side and the 96 Packers on the other side. So, again, it's only been 2 weeks. It's entirely too early to make broad, sweeping assumptions about how things are going to end up. But I think it is unbelievably necessary that we have this level of defense. There's obviously the old adage of defense wins championships, and although you can probably find outliers here and there, the evidence has always been staggeringly clear to me, having looked back at this numerous times, that when the Packers have a dominant elite defense is when the Packers go on to win Super Bowls. Since 1990, when they've had an offense and a quarterback capable of winning a Super Bowl, they've won 2 Super Bowls, and the only 2 times they won Super Bowls are the 2 years that they've had dominant defenses. Another way to look at that is that every year that they've had a dominant defense in this era of having good offenses, good coaches, good quarterbacks, whatever, that's the assumption here, because you can't just have a great defense and a garbage football team, quarterback, whatever. Every time they've had this elite defense, not just good, like 2001, 2007, but staggeringly good defense, they've won Super Bowls. This is a crucial component. And right now, for the first time since 2010, we have a defense that is doing what only the 2010 and 1996 Packers have done in most of our lifetimes. We'll take a break. We'll be back to take a look at how Jordan is doing, what we need from him, want from him, etc., after the break. All right, real quick before we get to the quarterback stuff, a little bit of news and notes. We did hear from Matt LaFleur. Zach Tom and Aaron Banks will both be practicing today, as in Wednesday. It will be limited, but that's a great step in the right direction. He also commented on the rookies, Savion Williams and Matthew Golden. I like what he had to say here. He said, the beauty is we don't have to force anything. It can happen organically and happen over time. That's how much confidence we have in that group. And again, the reason I like that is because this is very much, it's not to say that I've seen people panicking. That's been very, very minimal. I think there's still a lot of excitement, especially about Golden. And Savion is just a bonus. I don't know that anybody had massively high hopes. But it just seems evidently true to me that that is the case, and it feels good to hear Matt LaFleur essentially say it. There is no panic. I'm sure Golden would love to be that dude and get 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns and be Offensive Rookie of the Year and all that stuff, and we would all love that too. That'd be cool. But I think from Matt LaFleur's perspective, from the the way that the offense works is we don't have to panic into this thing. We have an offense, and that offense is comprised of Romeo and Wicks and Reed, essentially, right now. And then we've got these other things that we're going to try to slowly work on. We're going to ease into. We're going to put Savion Williams out there and just have him run some routes and see what he can do. We're going to try the Wildcat thing. Just see what happens. And I guarantee there's 15 other things they'd love to do with Savion Williams, but they're going to see how they go slowly. And again, with Golden, we're going to have him run some routes. We're going to put it on tape, and we're going to have him do a lot of clear out stuff as the speed guy. And again, the fact of the matter is you go back and watch what he puts on tape, and you see that he's open all the time. All that's going to do, they're going to get back in the film room, they're going to watch, and Jordan Love is going to see him open, Matt LaFleur is going to see him open, and they're going to go, okay, maybe I do want to peek over that way once in a while. But again, these things do take time. It's definitely going, I mean, it's 2 games, but it's going a little slower than I thought. I thought he'd get 3, 4, 5 targets a game by this point, whether that's a big, 30 yards or 50 yards or 80 yards or whatever. But he's looking phenomenal, and I think Savion is somebody that Matt LaFleur is super excited about. But again, they love Tucker. They love Reed. I know he's hurt, but they love Reed. Dobbs plays a big role. Wicks does some really awesome things. It is what it is. And they're going to get there when they get there. And what there even is, I don't know. Again, my assumption was that they were going to lean more and more into Matthew Golden, just because he was going to end up being so much better than everybody else. But honestly, again, Reed went down. Reed was off to an unbelievable start. Wicks is looking fantastic. Romeo's looking fantastic. Tucker is playing out of his mind. That's the other end of the equation. If these guys were kind of, dropping passes and doing all that kind of crap, this transition would happen a lot faster. If they keep playing at a very high level like they are, Golden's going to be just one of the guys. Probably the best of the guys, but still just going to be one of the guys. And frickin' that's fine. Let's talk about Jaden Reed's foot surgery. He broke his clavicle, but there was also something wrong with his foot. And so I don't know if it was just something that was lingering they decided to take care of in addition or what, but he was asked about that. Is that going to extend the timeline? Matt LaFleur said no. So he should heal from that as quick or quicker than the clavicle surgery that was done. And Matt LaFleur said, I think it'll actually benefit him in the long run, which makes sense. If that was something he was just going to fight through, now when he comes back, he's completely healthy. I don't have the injury report yet, so we'll catch up on that maybe after the second break. But some other interesting news from around the league. Apparently, Jaden Daniels will not practice until Friday at the earliest. That's not great news for Washington, which is good for us. Justin Fields is going to be out for Week 3. Doesn't really impact us, but it's a fun storyline that I like to keep tabs on. A.J. Terrell, cornerback for the Falcons, is going to be week to week. Khalil Mack, expected to be back in a few weeks. He's going to be out for a while. And the Vikings officially put Aaron Jones with his hamstring injury on injured reserve. As much as I always say, when you're gone, I got no love for you. When you retire, you can come back and all. It's hard to not just love Aaron Jones all the time. I don't want to see him go out like this. It's not that big of a deal. It's 4 weeks. He'll be back, but it's just he doesn't look as good. The hamstring injuries are coming back. He's on IR. I mean, the team was noticeably better when he was not out there, which is the opposite of how it used to be in Green Bay. When he would go off the field, our run game would go to 0, and he would come out and make magic happen. Aaron Jones made things look significantly worse when he was out there. He's out there wearing that stupid purple. He's not helping the Vikings, which I guess is good for us, but it's not great for him. I think he should just come back. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying Aaron Jones is great, but I would take him over Brooks right now. No offense, Brooks. You're cool and all, but if we're not going to put Emmanuel Wilson out there for some reason I'll never understand, then let's just get Aaron Jones. Let's put him in the freaking green and gold. Let him. You know what it is? It's the Donald Driver treatment. We're on our way to a Super Bowl, okay? You should be here for this. Devontae should too, but I don't know what we can do about that. I can't really afford you right now. Plus, you got a good NFC team over there. You'll be fine. Aaron Jones, he needs to come home. We'll put him on our IR, all right? We'll take his contract. We'll take all of it, and he can sit on our IR. You don't need him. That's just the way it should be. As a result, Cam Akers got signed to the Vikings practice squad, so there's that. They also signed quarterback Desmond Ridder. What an insane quarterback situation they have. I mean, it's probably going to work. Carson Wentz is going to go full Daniel Jones over there, but it still just looks so ugly and horrible. Christian Watson said he anticipates returning to practice in some capacity when his window to do so opens in Week 6. He said, I feel like if it was the NFC Championship game tomorrow, I'd be able to go out there and feel confident for sure. Watson told The Athletic's Matt Schneidman. Watson's window to return, whenever it opens, would be 21 days long. So reading between the lines, it sounds like Watson could be ready for return somewhere before Week 10. So there you go. Sounds like we'll see, but I would guess as soon as his window opens to return, he will return, and then he has to return back to the 53-man roster within that window once he's returned. And that won't really be a problem. I think he'll be fine. All right, let's talk about the quarterbacks a little bit. The practice is going on right now. We'll catch up on some of that in a little bit. So that there isn't anything as definitive as far as, Brett Favre in 96 and Rodgers in 2010 were super, 1 and 2 here. And that's not really a thing, especially Brett Favre. It was almost in no way even his best year outside of touchdown percentage. That would be the one thing that both of them were relatively high in. Aaron Rodgers was 15. Let me filter this a little bit better. So the filter being you need to have passed 100 times. Aaron Rodgers in 2010 ranked 13th, and that's among Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers' years, right? So it was big for Brett Favre in terms of his touchdown percentage, not really in anything else. For Rodgers, it's hard to find anything that he was the best at. I mean, even for himself in 2010. So like his completion percentage, he ranks 8th with, 6 of the 7 that were better than him being himself. 2020 Rodgers, which was, 2020 is maybe the best Rodgers. That in 2011, obviously. If you look at total touchdowns, it was 2020. Touchdown percentage, it was 2020. If you look at interception percentage, it was 2018. Passer rating, 2011. AV, which is the metric they use over there at Sports Reference, 23, by far, not by far his best, but 23 in 2011, 22 in 2014, and then it drops off pretty steep from there. But the point is, again, there isn't sort of this massive metric. It's good quarterback play, elite defensive play has been, at least for the Packers, the formula. Now, I got to drop this back down for a little bit because Jordan this year has not thrown 100 passes. And it's hard to know exactly what are, sort of the best metrics to use here. But if we look at some of these key metrics, like touchdown percentage, Aaron Rodgers is at 5.9%. Not necessarily his best by a mile. Not anybody's best. He was at 5.9%. Brett Favre was at 7.2%. Now that was, again, Brett Favre's best year as far as touchdown percentage at 7.2%. Jordan Love right now is at 7.5%. Now, that's not as good as the two best years, which were Rodgers in 2020 and 2011 at 9.1 and 9.0. But remember, we didn't win the Super Bowl either of those years. Interception percentage, obviously Jordan Love dominates because he hasn't thrown one. If we look at passer rating, Brett Favre back in 1996 had a 95.8 passer rating. Aaron Rodgers, 101.2 passer rating. Jordan Love right now, 120 passer rating. Now, Aaron Rodgers, 2020 and 2011 were better, a little bit. 120 compared to 121.5 and 122.5. Malik Willis reigned supreme in 2024 with a 124.8. If we look at adjusted net yards per attempt, and again, I've mentioned before that this is a pretty solid metric. I don't remember exactly where it would rank, but as far as the few that we have available to us going all the way back to the 90s, adjusted net yards per attempt is a really strong efficiency metric It essentially tells you how much value a quarterback creates per passing play, accounting for explosive plays and positive plays, essentially minus some drive-killing mistakes like interceptions and sacks. Now, sacks are kind of iffy because you could say that's the offensive line's fault, but whatever. It's a clean measure of passing efficiency. Now, if we go back and look at some of these, Brett Favre, and this is out of, we're talking right now, 47 Packers quarterbacks going back to 1990. There were obviously some years with several because we're just talking about 50 pass attempts. So there's a couple guys like Malik and Mikowski and Blair Keel that are mixed in here. But Brett Favre ranked 22nd with a 6.61 adjusted net yards per attempt. So I don't think it's bad, especially for him. It was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was sixth best year as far as adjusted net yards per attempt. It's whatever. Again, there's not this like elite play, but it was good enough for Brett. Aaron Rodgers ranks 9th the year he won the Super Bowl, 7.5. Now, Rodgers had several better years. He had 8 in 2021, 8 in 2023, 8.65 in 2014, 8.89 in 2020, and then 2011, his best year in adjusted net yards per attempt at 9.39. Jordan Love right now is at 9.76. It is the highest adjusted net yards per attempt of any quarterback going back to 1990. Now, the small sample size is probably playing a huge part in this. He has thrown 0 interceptions, which is a big part of this. Interceptions are massively negative. So, we'll see. But again, that's all we're doing is we're looking 2 weeks in, where are we at? And so since the bar is a little bit lower for quarterbacks, it's always great to be as high as possible, right? I would take 2020 or 2011 Rodgers over just about anything if you're trying to go win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying it doesn't need to be the best of the best. But right now, we're kind of getting best of the best from Jordan. Success rate, pretty, well, let's just say very low for Brett Favre, 31st with 45%. Jordan is 21st with 47%. Rodgers in 2010 was the 4th highest, 51.4%. Rodgers in 14, 11, and 20 were the only ones that were higher. I'd like to find some DVOA stuff, but I other than team stats, I can't find like historic quarterback type stats, and maybe they don't have it. But since I have this up as far as team stats real quick, I just want to point out, and again, it's early, and these things, when it's early, you get crazier numbers, But the highest total team DVOA ever was the 2007 New England Patriots with a 52.3 total DVOA. Right now, the Green Bay Packers have a 54.8 DVOA. So what we've seen from the Packers in 2 weeks, if that were to continue for an entire season, again, unlikely, but if it were to continue for an entire season, we're talking about, according to DVOA, the greatest team that we've kind of ever seen. 55% better than an average team. The second best is all the way down at 41.6. That's a huge drop-off, and then from there it's 39%. There are only 5 teams that are even at 30% or higher. There are 2 teams at 40% or higher, and the Packers are at 55%. It's pretty staggering. The 1996 Green Bay Packers were the 8th best team that DVOA has recorded, and it was at 39.7%. So that's cool. All right, back to Jordan Love. In fact, why don't we just take a break here? We'll come back and look a little bit at Jordan Love as far as PFF is concerned, looking at him compared to himself, and then him compared to Rodgers, because that's as far back as it'll go, just to kind of give us some context as to how he's doing. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so let's start with this. I'm going to annoy the living crap out of you with this, but I know how some people are. I understand it's just 2 weeks. We are just looking at, so far through 2 weeks, how has Jordan Love looked compared to where we need him to be. Because I had said, prior to knowing Micah Parsons was coming here, when we had all these discussions, that nothing is more important than Jordan. Nothing. We need a good quarterback. That is obvious. We can have great receivers and a good coach and a good running back and a great offensive line and good pass rusher, corner, safety, whatever. We need a quarterback. Now, aside from 2021, when he came in that Chiefs game, which looked appalling, right? That was super scary. He came in. It was a terrible circumstance, but he wasn't ready, and he was blitzed every second. It was terrible. He had a 36.2 grade, a 31 passing grade. I didn't even notice this. This is wild. He had one big-time throw and 6 turnover-worthy plays, which is 8.2% of his passes in that season in 2021. 2022 was sort of that Eagles season. Didn't play very much, 21 attempts, 14 completions, whatever. And it was like, wait a minute, this guy's playing better than Rodgers was. This is intriguing. And I think it set off some alarm bells for the Packers front office and everything else. We got to move on, et cetera, et cetera. But he had a 79 grade, 77 passing grade. 2023, he comes in. It was a slow start. It was a little bit rocky, but by the end of it, he completed 65% of his passes, 4,600 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 37 touchdowns, 13 picks, 84 PFF grade, 83 passing grade, 5.5% big-time throw rate, 2.5% turnover-worthy play rate, 73% adjusted completion rate, 5.8% drop rate, 97.1 passer rating when targeted. The next year, 2024, he had injuries, like 3 of them. It's hard to know exactly how much that impacted this, that, or the other, but the hope was that any decline that we saw from 2023 to 2024 was due to the injury and that we'd get him right back. His completion rate dropped from 65 to 63. He went from 4,600 yards to 3,600 yards, 25 touchdowns instead of 37, and even in the shortened period of time, he threw one more interception from 13 up to 14. His big-time throw rate dropped from 5.5 down to 3.4. His turnover-worthy play rate went from 2.5 up to 3.2. His passer rating went from 97 down to 93. So what is happening this year? His completion rate in 2023, which is the best as far as him starting, was 65%. It's currently 66%. His yards are not as good as they were in 2023. He's on pace for 4,080 yards, which would still make him a Chicago Bears great. A lot of that has to do with attempts because his yards per attempt right now are through the freaking roof. 7.3 in 2023. That went up to 7.9 in 2024. It's at 9.1 in 2025. He's on pace right now for 34 touchdowns, which would be 3 less than 2023. He has 0 interceptions, which, can't really extrapolate that out. However, his turnover-worthy play percentage is higher even than last year. It's still just those 2 plays from week 1, but he's at 3.3%. Again, in 2023, it was 2.5%. However, big-time throw rate. 2023 was 5.5%. This year, it's 10.5%. Adjusted completion percentage compared to 2023, it was 73%. It's currently 77%. Drop rate, it was 5.8%, last year 8.3%, this year 5.4%, so that is also down. His passer rating went from a 97 up to 120. His PFF grade, if I didn't say it yet, was an 84, it's currently an 87. His PFF passing grade was an 83, it's currently an 85. So he is right now, in most metrics, the baseline boring metrics that everybody's going to care about, yards and touchdowns, he is not outpacing that. But when you start to scratch a little bit more beneath the surface, he is at 2023 levels or better. And I think most of us would agree that we are just scratching the surface. When you look at the fact that his pressure rate, in fact, let's look at that real quick because I'm curious about that. So as I said, he is under pressure 39% of his dropbacks and has a 63 PFF grade while under pressure, which is quite good. In 2023, he was under pressure 31% of the time, 64 PFF grade. Again, also quite good, surprisingly. He had a 90 PFF grade when not under pressure. He is you give this guy time, he will destroy you. 90 PFF passing grade, and he was kept clean 69% of the time. This year, kept clean just 61% of the time, 92 PFF grade, 91 PFF passing grade. So very, very similar. But again, his grades go up if you just allocate more of his snaps to being clean as opposed to under pressure. And it becomes somewhat exponential because what's going to happen, we're not just talking about more accurate throws and all that kind of stuff, but remember, if he has a little bit more time, he's not just dumping it off to Tucker Kraft. He's going to look up at that next level. He's going to see Matthew Golden running wide open 15 yards down the field, and he's going to freaking rail that thing straight into his chest. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if Cleveland's going to bring the house. It looks like they got a really good defense, unfortunately. It's kind of early to know that. I did some very cursory looks at their defense and what seems to be working, and it's hard to know. I mean, some of them are guys like Carson Schwessinger, which is such a freaking hard name to say. Carson Schwessinger, who's a rookie. Maybe he's a stud, maybe it's a fluke. I have no idea. We saw that with guys like, I think, Savage and some other people where, weeks 1 and 2, elite, and then it's just the rest of their career is nothing. Final thing, though, is I want to compare Jordan this year so far and see kind of where that would line up with an Aaron Rodgers year. So, first of all, again, he is, let me go back, currently at an 87 PFF grade. The most similar, just based on PFF grade, would be like 2009 Rodgers. Now, Rodgers has had 8 years that ended up being higher than that. So this is not like the greatest quarterback play we've ever seen, and I think most of us would agree with that. We're very happy. He's playing really good football. Couple passes here, there, the other thing, whatever, but solid football with plenty of potential, by the way. Remember, in 2023, the entire half of the season was kind of bad. And then the second half was so unbelievably good. And remember, I went over the numbers. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're new here. In 2023, if you look at the second half of Jordan Love's career and match that up to Rodgers, it is up there with some of Rodgers' best years, arguably better than his best. 2020, he had a 95 PFF grade. I mean, it's just psychotic type stuff. So there's reason to believe. I mean, if Jordan is doing this at the beginning of the year, which you've never seen before, going back to 2022 with Rodgers, this weird thing where the first half of the year, the entire team and the quarterback especially sucks. The pass game can't get going, and then second half, everything takes off like a rocket. If we're going to start this way, let's hope we also get some rocketry. Let's get Golden going. Let's get Savion going. Let's get Christian back. Let's get Jaden back. Let's get Musgrave rolling a little bit, Let's get our run game going. We have none. A quarterback doing all this with no run game is not easy. Anyways, looking at yards per attempt, Jordan at 9.1 is 1/10 of a yard higher than Rodgers ever had. Rodgers in 2011 was at 9 yards per attempt. So this whole rocket ball thing down the field, this is 2011 Rodgers. And we can't pretend we've never seen this before, right? Rodgers loved to launch the ball down the field. He had that in common with Mike McCarthy. They just wanted to frickin' rocket ball down the field, big-time throws all day long. That was 2011 Rodgers. Just bombs away. And it obviously worked very well with his 47 touchdowns, almost 5,000 yards, only 7 interceptions, 93 PFF grade, 93 passing grade. Just an absolute stud, phenom performance. That's kind of what we're seeing from Jordan right now, just without the amount of positive results in terms of yards and touchdowns and whatnot. It hasn't connected as much. Again, remember, tighten up those 2 throws to Golden. We're already having a different conversation about, doubling those touchdowns. What did I say, 34? So now you're talking, 72? It's a different conversation. I don't know, it would be 6, right? So it would be 3, so 50% more, 51 touchdowns, whatever. If we look at big-time throw rate, again, 2011 was Rodgers' bombs away year. That was his highest ever. It was 9% of his passes were considered big-time throws. Let me just define that again really quickly for those that are new here. A pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and or into a tight window. Aaron Rodgers' bombs away year was 2011, 9%. Jordan Love, again, is at 10.5%. In terms of big-time throws, in terms of explosive plays, this is the best quarterback performance we've seen. It comes with some drawbacks. It comes with some more missed passes and more dangerous throws and all that kind of stuff. But as far as exciting rocket balls down the field, this is as good as it gets. This is 2011 Green Bay Packers. Absolute craziness. Now, as far as the turnover-worthy plays, obviously Rodgers was very well known for basically never putting the ball in harm's way. This would be Rodgers' third worst year, looking at 3.3%. 2017, Aaron Rodgers, he had a 79 grade, 75 passing grade. 3.3% of his passes were turnover-worthy plays. He ended up with just 6 picks on the season. The other years worse than that, right now, 2025 Pittsburgh at 3.9%, and then 2006 Green Bay, where he didn't really even play. So really the only 2 years worse were years where he didn't play. 2006, which would be like Jordan Love's Kansas City Chiefs year, and then this year, which will probably get cleaned up anyways. I mean, it's been 2 games. Rodgers will probably get that number down as far as his turnover-worthy plays, which is at 3, by the way, and he's apparently thrown 2 picks. I didn't even realize that. It's crazy that that's how many picks he threw in total in 2018. As far as his adjusted completion percentage at 77.1%, that would put him pretty high for even for Rodgers. It would be about 2008, where he's at 77.4, 2009, 77.5, 2021, 77.7. His psycho years were 2012, where he was at 80%, 2011 at 80.3, and then 2020 at 81.2. NFL passer rating, Jordan Love right now at 120 even. Aaron Rodgers' best year was 2020 at 119.2. So it's different in different ways, but very similar to the defense. If he can continue what he's doing, some of these metrics will be some of the best we've ever seen. You don't really expect everything to continue. Some things will get better, some things will get worse. We'll have to see how it goes. But as of right now, Jordan is on pace to have a very good year. I think this offense is primed to have a very good year. And again, the defense is what's really, really interesting. And I think especially when you consider it's possible they went up against 2 very dangerous powerhouse offenses. We just saw Detroit put up 50-some-odd points against the Bears. Not to say that they were as good of a team. Maybe it's, week 2 they took a big step, kind of getting more familiar with this system. Maybe it had to do with attacking Ben Johnson and kind of having some kind of an understanding or something. I don't know. But it's a very good offense. And I think Washington has a very good offense. And they have a very mobile quarterback, which is scary and causes a lot of problems for a lot of teams. You pair that or contrast that with some of the other teams we're going to be going up against, like Cleveland, who has, from what I can tell, a very good defense, but I don't think their offense can touch Washington and especially Detroit. It's like I talked about, I think, yesterday or the day before, as far as looking at DVOA, they have that metric that shows the games you've played compared to the games you have coming up, and they've played, I think, the 6th hardest schedule so far. They have like the 30th ranked schedule moving forward. We got, Detroit again. We have Baltimore and Philly, I think, are like the 3 that are tough. Something like that. I can never remember the schedule. But, not to discount it, Dallas could be scary. Maybe we get super hung up on Cleveland and just can't move the ball and some weird stuff happens and, they stick around and are able to do enough to beat us. Who knows the stuff that can happen. But the point is the potential is absolutely there. The runway is there. The defense is going to have to carry us for another week, maybe as far as Cleveland is concerned, to kind of get things rocking and rolling. But, this is obviously very doable. You're scared of Myles Garrett, but we've already faced Aiden Hutchinson. Anything that you could necessarily be scared of, I think we've done it. We've been there. And I think Cleveland should be 10 times more scared of us than we are of them. So I'm just going to keep saying it. I know it's 2 weeks, but they are on a historic path. They are on a path to be in and around the 96 Packers. The defense in particular. I would be surprised if they're the number 1 offense and number 1 defense, but number 1 team overall with the top defense in football is not out of the scope of a possibility with a easily a top 5 offense, is kind of where we're coasting right now in terms of how I think this could end up if things stay the way they are. But, screw it. Why not? Well, let's shoot for the stars. Number 1 in all categories, undefeated for the season, and win the Super Bowl. That's the other side of this thing. Let's calm down, but also, maybe once in a while we don't. Maybe sometimes we get freaking crazy. Maybe sometimes we see what's in front of us and just say, how about we just take it? What are you going to do about it? If we just take it, are you going to stop us? You ain't going to stop nothing. Stupid. Oh, man, it feels good to be a Packer fan. And I'm really hoping for another good week. It's been fun. It's been amazing. We haven't been this optimistic by week 3. I would say probably since 2011. Coming off a Super Bowl win, feeling like you're the best team in football, and then watching your offense eviscerate teams like they don't exist was a feeling of euphoria where you just felt like nobody could touch you and nothing was ever going to stop you. And I feel like we're getting to that point. Maybe we were in that zone in 2012 a little bit, whatever. 14 was pretty dope. But, a couple more weeks of this, and it's things are going to change, I think, for all of us. And our ability to tamp down the optimism is going to be at 0. So here's to hoping for a big game against Cleveland. All right, final notes on the practice. Jaden Reed, foot and collarbone, and Bo Melton's shoulder are the only Packers not practicing today. They're 51 of 53. Zach, Tom, Aaron Banks both practicing, as we knew. There's some videos of all that stuff going on. Some throws from Jordan to Golden, which always feels good. If they could just do it in a game, that'd be better. Bill Huber says Bo Melton is actually back, which would make Jaden Reed the only one. Mike Spofford also points out that there is no visible wrap on quarterback Jordan Love's left hand anymore, so he may be completely back. Finally, we officially got the injury report here. Zane Anderson, knee, full participant. Aaron Banks, groin, limited participant. He did say, he told the media, I will be playing. So I'm going to take him at his word on that. Nate Hobbs was limited with a knee injury. Josh Jacobs was limited with an ankle injury. Jordan Love was a full participant. Bo Melton, limited shoulder injury. Jaden Reed obviously did not participate. And Zach Tom was limited with an oblique injury. He was asked the same question, and he said, check with me tomorrow. So obviously not quite where he needs to be, but still some level of optimism he'll get there. All right, I'm going to get out of here. You all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.